Hello, everyone. Welcome back to What's Next, brought to you by the Circle Club. My name's Corey, joined here today again with the great Tyrone. Tyrone, how you doing?
Thanks, boss. I'm good, man. Very excited to talk about this one.
Awesome, me too. So today we're covering Moonlight episode 3, The Friendly Type. What was your initial thoughts on this one, Tyrone?
So, I've been real hesitant about this series where I'm like, I don't know. Am I in it? Am I out? But this one, I thought this was the best episode so far. Let me just get the little complaints out the way. I think they need to kind of move on. Like some of these action scenes are taking a little bit longer than I care for. I think that when you have Mark or Steven, whoever, in that beginning scene with the 3 civilians, it's important because you need to see that there's potentially that third altar there. But some of those scenes dragged a little bit too. When we're actually in the tomb of Pyramid of Giza, I thought some of those scenes were a little bit elongated. That third woman, very interested to know what's going on with her there. I will get her name as we continue this, don't worry. But overall, I actually did enjoy this episode a lot. I thought we got to see some cool kind of political god stuff going on with inside the Pyramid of Giza, which is really well done. I like that we got to see a little bit of that third altar, as I spoke about before. Again, the big thing was Khonshu's sacrifice and what's going to happen there next. But overall, I think I enjoyed this episode, and I got a couple of things I'm curious about in predictions. What about you, Corey?
Yeah, there's a couple of things I want to dive into. I think for me, it's a similar sentiment as these first 2 episodes, right? Really developing the story a little bit further, unraveling that onion, giving us more details and giving us more understanding on how things are working, right? While also mixing in some new interesting elements at the same time, right? Things I really did like on just a surface level. I thought the visuals have finally gotten back into the spot that I really like. There's some really good wow visuals, some sets, some of the CGI is a lot better than I saw in that first episode. So I was really enjoying that. Again, the acting in this by Oscar Isaac is absolutely impeccable. This man is killing it. Bouncing.
The action worked this episode too. It worked really well this episode.
Yeah, and the action was a lot better. I think the issue I'm having with some of the action right now is it's very clear that Moon Knight himself, especially in the Mark Spector Moon Knight suit, is very ahead of the competition he's facing, right? Obviously, Arthur is a very big problem that's going to be coming, but we haven't really seen that battle yet between them. So Moon Knight's really making quick work of a lot of people, and I'm really wanting to see him challenged a bit. I really feel like his abilities haven't been challenged in that regard yet, and that's what I'm really interested to see. But there's a lot of new elements that they kind of really dove into and expanded upon in this episode that I really want to dive into, but I thought it was pretty good. Similar cadence as these first 2 episodes.
One thing I'm kind of curious about is more about what's in Senfu's or Snimfu's sarcophagus and what is that? What's the significance of this person? Did you have any thoughts, ideas? Do you have any back from the comic world?
Yeah, what I think specific to just this show and nothing in regards to comics or anything like that. I think they use this as an avenue to continue to help develop the character beyond Khonshu, right? And let us explore that a little bit more, because what they're doing now, right, is they're really putting it all on Steven and Mark and whoever maybe that third altar is, right? It's really on them to now get Khonshu out of the imprisonment he is in and finding where this situation is. And I think this is where it connects Layla as well, because Layla has this clear connection to Egyptian culture and the situation going on there. We need to know a little bit more about her dad, but clearly there's something going on there, right? And I think it helps bring Layla and make more sense to allow her to work with Mark, because Mark has been very against her being involved, right? And I think now with Steven too and his knowledge, it's really forcing them as a trio to work together to find out where Ahmed is, which allows us to get more understanding of how everything's really working between these characters. And you're starting to see it between almost how Layla's feeling about Steven, how Steven feels about Layla, how Mark feels about Layla, how Layla feels about Mark, right? So I think, again, it goes back to what we talk about. It's a similar cadence as episodes 1 and 2. They're trying to tell us more before we really dive into the action. I feel like that they have waiting for us.
Yeah, and one thing I didn't really love about that scene where they're in the car talking about secrets is we've seen so many times over and over and over and over where the superhero doesn't tell their love interest what's going on. And it's like, you have to be able to tell your person that you're with these things. Otherwise, it just creates all these other issues and problems. And that might just be a storytelling technique that they're using there. But I personally would like to see him just tell her. So I'm hoping the reason he doesn't tell her what his secret is because it's this really like larger, bigger thing.
I think part of what is happening is they're really trying to establish this, again, dynamic between those three characters, right? Layla is really in left field and realizing that has everything about this relationship not been true, right? And I feel like she's in a very hurt spot. And I think Steven provides almost like some of that light as to somebody who she on the surface level loves, who is Mark, but Steven's really providing a lot of those things that she truthfully loves herself, that's getting her more into the person he is, right? And I think we know Mark loves Layla, but he's been withdrawn from her because of his scenario, and he hasn't really been open about everything. And I think this journey that they're about to go on and that they're forced to go on without Khonshu is to help mend, so to speak, those wounds, almost foreshadowing the mummification and everything coming together, right? Like they're really trying to mend those wounds that have been created from the lack of honesty and trust that Mark has had with his current situation and wanted to tell people about it.
So Corey, we've got to see a little bit of the Ennead Council, and then we saw how Arthur manipulated them. So then, our boy Khonshu is on the hot spot, but Yatzil, that was her name, Yatzil, the avatar of Hathor, she comes into play and she is going to help him. Do you have any predictions, thoughts, ideas about that whole dynamic there?
Yeah, I'm very intrigued by this Ennead, right? Like kind of going back to what we talked about before, this whole avatar aspect to these gods is a whole new thing to the MCU, right? And I think it's very intriguing to see, like, you think about these gods, right? Like you think of Thor, right? Having to be like the protector of Midgard, Earth, so to speak, right? And all these different higher entities and their responsibilities. Like, what is the responsibilities of these Egyptian gods when it ties to all these other things? But also, why have they given up on humans, right? Why are they not wanting to get involved, right? I think we've seen a lot about that. Like, if you even think about a little disassociated, but like X-Men Apocalypse, right? Oscar Isaac was in that as Apocalypse, and he felt like humans or just in general, they really didn't show the respect that was deserved there, right? So seeing how the Ennead is more so hands-off is curious to me, because clearly they're willing to get hands-on when things are wrong, right? They're willing to shun and banish Amit. Now they're ready to shun and banish Khonshu, right? But the thing I have a problem with it is like they're willing to make those actions, but they're not really willing to investigate, which I think to me is a big problem and why things are spiraling out of control, right? Like they should take more ownership. So maybe this is why humans have not really given them the praise that they deserve, right? So I think we need to understand more about the Ennead and why they're doing the things they're doing, because I feel like they're way too loose with what's going on right now, truthfully.
Yeah, and part of me is a little confused about some of that relationship between the Ennead and humans as well. And I don't know if you caught it, there's this little line where Layla's like, when Mark is in the bazaar, I think it is, and she's like, yeah, they're not going to talk to you, you're not Egyptian. And part of me was like kind of thinking that was like a foreshadowing of like the gods wouldn't speak to him because he's not Egyptian. And I don't know if the other avatars are Egyptian or not, but we clearly know that Mark is not. And I was like, is Khonshu kind of an outsider because he wanted to maybe provide avatars for people who weren't Egyptian or people who weren't on their land, and then maybe those people did something wrong with it? Like, this is, again, just theorizing stretch, but perhaps kind of like the X-Men, like you said, like perhaps someone, well, because Arthur was his original avatar, right? So clearly something went wrong there where he no longer became his avatar. And I think maybe he got punished, like, hey, Arthur couldn't handle this. You put it on him. You put it pressure. He's not Egyptian. He's not one of us. And that's where we are today. And then, so he got the second chance with Mark. And I think they're kind of seeing the same thing, maybe Spyro, so they don't trust him as much. So maybe that's my guess, is why they're like, it's kind of almost like The Boy Who Cried Wolf. It's like, you keep doing this over and over, we're not going to investigate every single time you freak out. So I'm guessing that there's some sort of history there that connects all that stuff. But then it goes into the whole colonialism. Like I said, a little in our other video, go check out the key takeaways. There has to be some sort of connection with the ideology of Killmonger and the Wakandans, because a big part of Killmonger's ideology was like, you're not one of us, you're not one of our people. And I wouldn't think it's crazy to think that these people who are definitely on the same continent or not too far have some sort of similar ideology. So those are some of my predictions and thoughts on that.